more on universal credit. I will be first just briefly outlining what members of the public think on the subject matter. Yes, the subject matter is today on the first half of the show on Betar Bangla on universal credit, and here it is.
It has been good for some carers because it allows you to get an amount for being an extra amount in the benefit for being a carer, even if you don't qualify for carers allowance, which has an income, an earnings limit. Carers allowance, you can only earn a certain amount, under a certain amount, to get carers allowance. So for carers who are earning a bit more than the limit for carers allowance, it's been a good thing because they can still get an extra amount for being a carer. But for other groups, such as people with disabilities and lone parents, it's been a really bad thing because and self-employed people as well, actually, because it punishes those groups for being who they are, really. Self-employed people, for instance, have to be earning, they have a minimum income floor, so there's a minimum income they're expected to earn as a self-employed person to be able to get universal credit. If they don't manage to earn that amount, they get penalised. So it's because it does target certain groups very harshly, I think.
I know quite a bit about universal credit, and based on what I know, it's not a good thing, no.
What do you know about universal credit?
I know how it works, so how they sort of work out how much everybody's entitled to, and I know that they believe that universal credit sort of puts people in a more comfortable situation. But from my experience, also with universal credit, it tends to put people in a worse situation. You tend to get less than what you used to get on the old benefit system, and it's not as consistent as the old benefit system either.
আমার হলো এই মাসে যে পেমেন্ট আসার কথা সেটা আসে না, কিন্তু আমার বেতন যেটা দেখাইছে, আমি যেটা বেতন পাইছি সেটা আসে না, বেতন আসছে আরও বেশি, কিন্তু আমার বেতন ব্যাংকে বেশি আসে না, আমার কাজের বেতন বেশি আসে না। ইউনিভার্সালি করছে যে ওখানে বেতন আমার আসছে অনেক বেশি, সেই হিসাবে আমার টাকা কম আসছে, কিন্তু এটা আমি ব্যাংক চেক করছি এবং আমার কোম্পানি চেক করছি, ঠিক নেই।
There's variety of benefits, and you screw up on one of them, you lose some or part of that benefit. But if you're on universal credit and you screw up, they sanction you and you lose every bloody penny you got.
I think it's very unfair. I don't like the way that they're putting everybody in arrears in the first month, and it's a trap.
There we are. So we heard some argues it's unfair, some says it's a trap, some says you lose your benefits partially. So, but the question is, what is it? Universal credit actually was initially rolled in from 2013. It was tested and tried in north of England and Scotland. In parts of London, it has been implemented recently. I think in Tower Hamlets, it was from last year, April. In Newham, it's from this year, this July, as we speak, in Newham, it's been implemented. In Hackney, it's going to be implemented, I think, in October. Islington, I understand, it has already implemented. So obviously different boroughs systematically implement universal credit at different times, but of course it is an income-based benefit. So what is it? It is a benefit which includes employment support allowance, working tax credit, job seekers allowance, your housing benefit, and of course children's component such as child tax credit, all into one. And you get it on a monthly basis. In order for you to claim, you claim online unless in a very exceptional scenario. So most people will be, when you apply, shall be getting, if you are entitled to it, on a monthly basis. So everything needs doing is no longer face to face, it's going to be online. So of course, when it comes to you signing in, you sign in online, going into government.com.co.uk, and then sign in Universal Credit, and you'll see what your situation is. So, of course, we know what the benefit is covered, but the question is for you and for me is what is it? So we mentioned about once a month you get it. It replaces several benefits, including income support, and also income-related employment support allowance, income-based job seekers allowance, housing, and of course I mentioned child tax credit, and you sign in online. And of course, when it comes to, let's say, if you are self-employed, how does that vary? Again, when you get the money, you usually get the money. And when it comes to providing income, of course, if you're on working tax credit, i.e. you're a worker and you're getting income, and the same rule is also when it comes to self-employed. You are earning. So at the end of each month, you'll be submitting your proof of your income to DWP, and they will then adjust your income based on your situation, and then you'll be getting the money if you are entitled to. So in terms of reporting payments into and out of your, let's say if you're a business in this period, you should include, I suppose, total amount of your business you received, how much your business spent on different types of expenses. That's obviously when you are self-employed and you are on universal credit. So you will including your expenses. You'll be including the money that you receive as part of your business. You will also explain how much tax and national insurance you paid, and any money you have paid into your personal pension. So, of course, in other words, all the administrative thing when it comes to finances will fall on you, just as you're a businessman. But of course, you need to provide the information to the Department of Work and Pension in order for you to claim universal credit. So in terms of universal credit, what types of work counts for universal credit if you are actually working? So in this case, of course, the work has to be gainful, i.e., meaningful self-employment. That means you have earnings. So your main employment is your self-employed, that's gainful. You have self-employed earnings. So in other words, you have to get money. Your work is organized and is developed and regular and in exceptional profit. So in other words, of course, you need to be highly organized when it comes to what you are getting, and you need to prove to the WDP based on your finances that it is not a sham, but it is truth. And of course, you do your tax returns to the HMRC, and any business plans you have, you forward it to them. You have your unique taxpayer's reference number. You make sure you outline that if you're registered for self-employment, and of course your cost and your marketing materials, which would also come as part of your cost. So how is your universal credit payment is worked out? And I'm sure since the show is about your money, we also know about your money in the context of universal credit. If you are gainfully self-employed, your universal credit payment may be calculated using an assumed level of earnings. So in other words, it's called a minimum income floor. So there is an assumption straight away is that you're getting national minimum wage as your salary. So in other words, if you call yourself self-employed, DWP or HMRC will assume straight away that you are getting, or it's expected that you get a minimum wage in earnings in your circumstances. If you earn more than this, if you earn more than your minimum salary, then your universal credit amount is based on your actual earnings. If, of course, you earn less, don't forget, going back to what you call minimum income floor is used to work out how much you can get. You may need to look for additional work to top up your income. So in other words, when you're self-employed, the assumption is you're getting minimum income level that is based on minimum wage. And of course, if you're getting less, there will be a persuasion for you to get more work. And if you're earning more, it will be assumed that you'll be getting less universal credit. So watch this space. So what happens if you're both self-employed and employed? Then, of course, universal credit payment will be worked out using your combined earnings or any applicable minimum income floor, whichever is higher. Yes, whichever is higher. So that's going to be on self-employment. But of course, there are other issues when it comes to disability and health. So let's say if you have a health condition or disability. So another word, universal credit, it isn't just simply for those who are working and earning less, but it is also, and if you remember, universal credit includes disability employment support allowance, includes job seekers allowance, and of course includes you working. So in other words, we talked about self-employed when you're working. Now let's talk briefly about when you are incapable of working. So let's say you're incapacity. You might get extra amount of universal credit if you have health conditions. But of course, again, your universal credit is a monthly payment to help your living cost, i.e., in order for you to survive. There is an expectation in Britain, yes, in Britain, that everyone in this country should live on a minimum level, i.e., they ought not to be in destitution. And that's why you have the benefit system in the UK, is to prevent individual being in destitution. It is not Bangladesh. It is not India. It is Britain. So Britain has an expectation that everyone, regardless who you are, have a limited standard of living. So in this case, even if your health is bad, you're not well. For whatever reasons, the expectation is, in theory anyway, that you are entitled to cost of living, and that cost is incurred by the state. Yes, the government. So yes, the credit union is set up by the government to help with your living cost. You may be able to get it if you're on low income or out of work, as I talked about it before. So yes, your health condition, you can get it if you are terminally ill. That's like you will never be recovering. Like if you are a terminally ill cancer sufferer, you're still entitled to it. And of course, the same rule apply once you apply for universal credit based on your disability. Then of course, you will have to go to a work capability assessment, just like under employment support allowance, where you have to go and be assessed, and an examiner, a health assessment advisory service, will be sending an appointment and assess your situation to see if you are entitled to I suppose, disability element of universal credit because you're not capable of working. That's based on disability and universal credit. And of course, how would that assessment, your fit for work assessment will work? Yeah, if you're fit for work, you need to agree to look for work that is suitable for your health condition and be prepared to work. If you have limited capability for work, i.e., there is limits to what you can do, your work coach, i.e., from job center, will discuss your situation and agree steps to help you start preparing for work. So there we are. Of course, there could be change of your circumstance. Your conditions getting bad or good, you just have to tell the DWP of your change of circumstances. So that's kind of what it is when it comes to your universal credit, when it comes to your well-being. But how starting work may affect your claim. You may still get universal credit if your conditions changes and you can start working again. your payment won't change until you earn over a certain amount. And of course, there is a limit, a cap to how much you can get currently. Although that cap, I think in London it's about £493 per week you can get. If you are a couple. And single, I think, is just about, I don't know, less than 300. I'm just saying this from the top of my head. Yeah, so you watch this space. There is a limit if you're a family, and there's a limit to a single person. And now I will prefer you to check online to see what the cap is. There is a benefit cap in terms of universal credit. That's how universal credit works in a sense of your health conditions. Really, you'll have to go through and assess. But of course, if you are not happy with the decision made by DWP, the same rule will apply, where you make an application for mandatory reconsideration. If you're not happy with the decision of the DWP, you explain why. And of course, if usually the outcome of your mandatory reconsideration request is that they reject your request, so therefore you might have to think about taking your case to first year tribunal for benefit claim. There, of course, your case will be heard from the scratch, and usually a huge proportion, over 60% of cases that are being appealed and goes to Social Security Tribunal, end up winning their cases because DWP seems to be, I suppose, what's the word? Very biased based on data. Not what I'm saying, but based on data provided by charities and NGOs like CPAG, Child Poverty Action Group, and other similar charities who are well known nationwide. They're saying it is detrimental, i.e., has a negative effect on those who are deprived, basically, who are in poverty. But what happens if you are, I suppose, on job seekers allowance? What's then? The same rule. You of course, you go online, you make your claim. You then check online how your claim is going. You'll be called to the job centre and then assessed, and you meet your caseworker regularly. Any updates, you do it online. If you are let's say under 24. JSA you'll be receiving is £57.90 per week. If you're over 25, for job seekers you'll be getting £73.10, couple £114.85. So that's kind of how it actually works in a sense of your universal credit actually. So do bear in mind there is a catch. If you have been sanctioned, I mean, it could happen for all sorts of reasons. If you are sanctioned, then obviously you need to act accordingly. If you challenge the sanctioning of yourself, you have a month within to challenge it and request for a mandatory reconsideration. And then, of course, take it to the tribunal saying why it's unfair for them to do that. In the meantime, whilst you're being sanctioned, what options do you have? Because you have no money, you might then have to think about going to your local food bank. Food bank is designed for those who are in poverty. There's no option but to feed yourself, and there is no money. So, of course, apart from getting money from friends and family, you might have to think about your local food bank. Then the question is, how do you get money from your local food bank? You have to approach organizations like Local Citizens Advice Bureau, who will advise you on your benefit problems, debt problems, as well as, of course, give you vouchers to gain access to food from a food bank in your local area. If you're in Tower Hamlets, there's about 4, I think. If it's Hackney, the same. Newham has similar kind of thing, but do check online wherever you are. So that's kind of it in the context of your universal credit. And of course, just to recap, some areas there is full service, i.e. you can get all types of claims under universal credit. and others are like individuals. So it depends where you are. I would suggest you check in your own local job center to find out. And that's kind of it for today, really. So what we have covered so far, it is, of course, we covered mortgage and mortgage arrears, and we had Robert, our independent financial advisor, talking about mortgage for you, and of course, and pitfalls to avoid. I've then talked about, of course, universal credit, and no doubt, of course, I've also heard about your views on it. But let's just recap on it again, just so we are aware what you think of the importance of universal credit and the negative side.
It has been good for some carers because it allows you to get an amount for being an
Does it
extra
work?
amount in the benefit
I've
for
shut
being a
it.
carer.
it's not working.
Even if
Is it
you're-
working?
You don't
It's a key.
qualify for carer's allowance.
You are playing this.
Yeah.
Has an income, an earnings limit, carer's allowance. You can only earn a certain amount. under
You're
a
not
certain
doing
amount to
anything
get
from there.
carer's
Yeah.
allowance.
Brilliant.
So for carers who are earning a bit more than the limit for carer's allowance,
Why is it not working?
It's been a good
don't know,
thing.
yeah.
So it was
Can you not
good
hear
that
it?
An extra
No.
amount for being a carer.
Because it was on up there, you know.
Yeah, I know, but there is some problem with the internet.
For people with disabilities
Well-
and both parents, it's been a really bad thing because and self-employed people as well, actually, because it punishes those groups for being who they are, really.
It's okay, connected, isn't it?
You know,
Well, I
self-employed
saved it anyway. I've got my
people,
camera
for
here.
instance, have to be earning, they have a minimum income floor. So there's a minimum income they're expected to earn as a self-employed person to be able to get universal credit. If they don't manage to earn that amount, they get penalised.
So what is your want?
So
If you close that.
it does target certain groups very harshly, I think.
Let me see.
I know quite a bit about universal credit, and based on what I know, it's not a good thing. No.
What do you know about universal credit?
I know how it works, so how they sort of work out how much everybody's entitled to, and I know that they
plain, isn't
believe
it?
that universal credit sort of puts people in a more in a more comfortable situation. But from my experience, also universal credit, it tends to put people in a worse situation. You tend to get less than what you used to get on the old benefit system, and it's not as consistent as the old benefit system either.
আমার হলো এই মাসে যে পেমেন্ট আসার কথা সেটা আসে না, কিন্তু আমার বেতন যেটা দেখাইছে
Well, I was pretend I'm finishing.
আমি যেটা বেতন পেয়েছি সেটা আসে না, বেতন আসছে আরো বেশি, কিন্তু আমার বেতন ব্যাংকে বেশি আসে না, আমার কাজের বেতন বেশি আসে না। ইউনিভার্সালি করছে যে ওখানে বেতন আমার আসছে অনেক বেশি, সেই হিসাবে আমার টাকা কম আসছে, কিন্তু এটা আমি ব্যাংক চেক করছি এবং আমার কোম্পানি চেক করছে ঠিক নেই।
There's variety of benefits, and you screw up on one of them, you lose some or part of that benefit. But if you're on universal credit and you screw up, they sanction you and you lose every bloody penny you got.
I think it's very unfair. I don't like the way that they're putting everybody in arrears in the first month, and it's a trap.
It has been good for some carers because it allows you to.
There we are. So we have now heard what members of the public think of universal credit. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have heard what I have to offer for today, but of course we'll have next week to follow. So watch this space and keep on listening and tuning in onto radio on Your Money Matters Show.
পাশের ছোট